a new era for Tulane football as Willie Fritz is off to Houston and John Sumrall is in as the new head coach of the Green Wave. But despite all of the coaching changes, Tulane is still one of the best teams in this conference and will remain a true contender for an American Conference title and possibly a spot in the 12-team college football playoff. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad you could join us today. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home of our exclusive expert picks, some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 6 years. We're going to make it 7 years by the end of this season. We're going to win big once again this season, hitting over 63% of our against the spread picks in our career here at our channel. You do not want to miss out. Go sign up for those today. Become a member of our GE Nation. It'll be the best decision you make all season long. And the season's going to be around starting here in just a few weeks. Do not want to miss out. So let's take a look at Tulane, guys. I really like this team. Despite the coaching changes, I thought Tulane made a fantastic hire, an underrated hire. John Sumrall went 23-4 in his 2 years as head coach at Troy. He was also the co-defensive coordinator here at Tulane from 2012 to 2014. So familiar with the area, familiar with how to recruit in the region. I mean, he's coached in New Orleans. Troy was in Alabama. He's familiar with the southern region here. I think he's going to do extremely well, continuing the success and the foundation that Willie Fritz left over many years, but in particular over the last few years where he led the Green Wave to a 23-5 record the last 2 seasons. Unbelievable run. That's not going to come to an end immediately just because Fritz is gone. You take a look at the offense. They do lose their all-time leading passer. The program's leading passer, Michael Pratt, is gone. And that's a big blow, losing your quarterback like that. But they're okay. They've got capable QBs on the roster. They add Ty Thompson in from Oregon. Many believe he will be the starter by the start of the season. He's battling Kai Horton, who started a handful of games last year, threw for over 600 yards and 3 touchdowns. Regardless of who gets the nod, I do believe it'll be Thompson, is going to be set up perfectly. They're both very capable, they're both very talented, and they're going to have a great supporting cast around them. Namely, their running back, Mekhi Hughes, who rushed for over 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns last year. Tulane is going to be dangerous on the ground. They do lose their top 3 pass catchers from last season, but bring in Mario Williams from USC. They've got Shaz Preston in from Alabama. They return Yulkeith Brown as well, and they have over 143 starts returning on the offensive line. This offense is going to be much better than people realize. You say, oh, Pratt's gone. Their top receivers are gone. They're going to struggle. I say, no, they're not. The defense, 7 starters are back, including their top 3 tacklers, including Machado at linebacker, 98 tackles last year. You got Tyler Grubbs returning also at linebacker, and then Bailey Despaney returning at safety. The defensive line is led by first-team American Athletic Conference selection defensive end Patrick Jenkins, who had 5.5 sacks last year. The secondary adds tons of transfers in, should be much better, should be much more experienced. Tulane has the talent, guys, and they honestly have the schedule that lines up very well for them. You take a look at it, yes, the non-conference is tough. Kansas State, Oklahoma, Louisiana, some very difficult games there, all in a 3-game stretch, but they get to host USF, they get to host Memphis, they avoid UTSA, so this is a very good Tulane team with a schedule that lines up perfectly for them to win 9, 10, heck, maybe even 11 games if things can go their way. Although 11 games would mean they'd have to pull off an upset over Kansas State or Oklahoma. So let's find out if they will. They will beat Southeast Louisiana in week 1, so they're 1-0. Then Kansas State and Oklahoma, a Big 12 member, and the Wildcats and Oklahoma, now an SEC member. It's interesting because they faced these 2 squads recently. You know, Tulane actually went on the road and beat Kansas State just a few years ago, winning 17-10 in Manhattan. And then against Oklahoma, the season opener in 2021, the Green Wave were like 32-point underdogs and nearly beat the Sooners, only losing 40-35 in Norman. So they held their own in both of those games. Tulane, as we know now, is no slouch. No one's overlooking them, but I don't think they have enough to beat either of these teams. Kansas State, our preseason pick to go on to win the Big 12 this season. Oklahoma will have one of the best defenses in the country, regardless of who is starting at quarterback for Tulane. They're not going to be able to manage to face off against this defense. They're not going to have much success against this defense. Tulane drops those 2. They're 1-2, but I do think they can go on the road and beat Louisiana. I do. And the major reason why is because while the Raging Cajuns will be improving, and while I think they could be a dangerous team in the Sun Belt this year, they allowed 171 rushing yards per game last season. This could be a massive, massive game for Mekhi Hughes. I can see him having a massive day on the ground. If Louisiana can't stop him, Tulane's really going to run wild. They are the better team in my eyes from a offensive standpoint, from a defensive standpoint. They just don't own home field advantage. They survived Louisiana. They are 2-2, and now it is time for the real test. Now it's time for the real thing. The highest ranked Group of 5 conference champion goes in. So it doesn't matter what they do in the non-conference. If they can win in the conference, they will have their shot, possibly, at a spot in the 12-team playoff, depending on what all the other Group of 5 teams do. Their first game, though, is tough. They open up the year against USF. This is a team that has an elite offense. 10 starters are back last year, really hit their stride at the end of the season, winning a handful of games, making a bowl game in year 1 under Alex Galesh, and then destroying Syracuse in that bowl game. The Bulls have the talent. If you're looking for a dark horse in the American this year, it's USF, no doubt about it. They've still got a lot of work to do defensively. And I have a lot of faith in this Tulane offense. I have a lot of faith in the running back, as we've already said. I have a lot of faith in the passing game and both quarterbacks. With home field advantage, they're going to take care of business against the Bulls. Again, offense is going to be so much fun to watch. If they don't take a big enough step forward defensively, they're not going to take as big of a step forward in the record as people want them to. They then go on the road to UAB. I'm picking a loss here. And I know Tulane fans are going to hate me for that. I get it. And it's like, how in the world are we going to lose to UAB? And I say you probably should have lost to UAB last year, if we're being completely honest. If you look at the score, you go, well, they won by 12. What do you mean? Tulane was losing that game 20-7 at one point, 20-7 late in the first half. It was only a 28-23 game late in the fourth quarter before Tulane added a late touchdown to win 35-23. The Blazers had a fumble at the goal line late in the game, would have drastically changed the outcome of the game. They were held to 3 field goals instead of touchdown, many of those deep into Tulane territory. Credit to the Green Wave defense, but UAB probably should have won last year. Now Tulane has to go on the road against a UAB team that averaged over 450 yards per game offensively last year, the majority of those coming through the air. Tulane had some questions in the secondary. Yes, they're going to be more experienced. Yes, they bring in a lot of transfers, but if they don't dwell quick enough, Jacob Zeno and the Blazers are going to torch that secondary. I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout, but I do think UAB pulls off an upset. I do think they drastically improved this year. They get the win over Tulane, and they're just 3-3 heading into their bye week. Now, that's not ideal, right? 3-3 is not ideal. Now, granted, 2 of those were to Kansas State and Oklahoma, both of which are games where Tulane will be an underdog, and not many people are expecting them to win. So only 1 conference loss at this point. Coming out of the bye week, the schedule is really, really good. So good that I actually think they win their next 5 games. They are going to beat Rice. Now, Rice, no slouch either, a team that could surprise a lot of people. So I'm really, if you're looking for 2 teams that could surprise you in the Americans, USF and Rice, I really like the Owls this year. Tulane barely escaped them, only winning 30-28, despite outgaining the Owls by almost 200 yards, 457-271. But they're going to beat the Owls this year. Then you get a handful of games against some of the weaker teams in the conference. That's how favorable the schedule panned out for Tulane. On the road at North Texas, offensively, going to be pretty good. Defensively, got some questions. Green Wave, going to own that edge. North Texas should have probably been a bowl team last year. I think they'll probably be a bowl team this year. Secondary is going to get tested, but once again, they've got the better coach. They've got the better defense right now. They're going to get the job done. Then on the road at Charlotte, still a rebuilding project for the 49ers. I think Tulane is going to be a massive favorite in this game. They should cruise past the 49ers in this game. They had to own the edge everywhere with the exception of home field advantage. They get the job done. They come home against Temple, who I think is the worst team in the American this year. Shouldn't even be a contest. And then on the road at Navy, who should, again, improve a little bit this year. But if you're Tulane, just stop the run and you're going to be okay. These military academies are a lot of fun to watch. We all know they're not very good passing teams. Shut down the run. You're going to be fine. Navy still going to struggle a little bit in year 2 under their new coach. They win 5 straight games. They are 8-3 coming into their final bye week, which comes at a great time before the season finale at home against Memphis. Now, we predicted Memphis earlier today. And we talked about Memphis. I think they arguably have the best roster in the American Conference this year. They have the best offense in the American Conference this year. But one of the issues for Memphis is their inconsistency. 10 wins last year was phenomenal. Some games they were blowing teams out. Other games they were barely winning when they were double-digit favorites, like having to score a game-winning touchdown with 12 seconds left to beat North Texas or having to beat Charlotte in overtime. What Memphis team shows up in the season finale at Tulane with a potential conference championship spot on the line for both teams and maybe playoff implications on the line for both teams? Which one shows up? I'm going to go with the inconsistent one. I like Tulane in this game. John Sumrall was phenomenal during his time at Troy. Only lost one home game in 2 years during his time at Troy. And I believe over the last 2 years, Tulane as a whole, under Willie Fritz, has only lost 4 home games. They've got a true home field advantage, guys. They're going to be well rested. The Green Wave beat Memphis last year. They were down by 11 points, 21-10, battled back, ended up winning 31-21 at Memphis. Their defense woke up, got the job done. I think the exact same thing happens here. The defense wakes up. They force Seth Henneken, the best quarterback in the conference, into a handful of mistakes. They've defeated Memphis 3 of the last 4 times. All 3 of those wins coming by at least 10 points. I don't think they're going to win by 10 this year, but they are going to beat Memphis at home. And that home field advantage playing a massive, massive role here. John Sumrall in his first year goes 9-3 with Tulane and only 1 conference loss. So at 7-1 in conference play, that's probably good enough to get them back into the American Championship game. Get into that championship game and win it, whether it's against Memphis, whether it's against UTSA, whoever it may be, they will have a legitimate case for the playoff, considering 2 of their losses are against maybe 1 or 2 playoff teams of their own. I like this Tulane team a lot, guys. Just because Willie Fritz is gone, just because Michael Pratt is gone, doesn't mean they're going to fall off the face of the earth. They are still a contender in this conference. They are still a playoff contender. A lot of group of 5 teams are this year. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch. 9-3, and we'll have more as we predict the American tomorrow, sharing whether or not Tulane does make the conference championship, whether or not they make it, and whether or not they might slip in to that 12-team playoff. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home of those exclusive expert picks. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country, beating out over 80% of those national handicappers each of the last 6 years. One of the best deals in the country, one of the lowest prices in the country. We guarantee you'll win big with us, so go check it out. The link's below. Become a member of our GE Nation. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.